Hello everyone, and thank you Peter and the New Culture Forum for inviting me to speak here today. We have heard a number of speeches today exploring many aspects of immigration and the impact it continues to have on our society. And being the penultimate speech of the day inevitably means I will be making reference to many of the things we have heard already, and I make no apologies for that because every speech today I think has been excellent. To begin, I intend to take things off on a tangent. Ignoring immigration as a phenomenon altogether, I want instead to ask a simple question. Firstly, what does all of this add up to? What is the purpose of an event such as this? One possible answer to that question is we have come here for a nice day out, to learn a few things, meet some new people. A perfectly respectable response, of course. But the vast majority of people here are roughly on the same page when it comes to immigration. Immigration levels are too high. Immigration causes societal dislocation and division. Immigration places unnecessary added pressure on our public services and infrastructure. We know all of this. We haven't really come here simply to be told, albeit by some very eminent scholars that we have heard today, what we already know to be true. But before Peter gets lynched for having lulled you all to the Emmanuel Centre under false pretences, I offer an alternative answer. Yes, we are here to gain new knowledge and meet people who share our interests and concerns, all very important and worthwhile. But I expect that most people here also want to do something about immigration. At least I hope so. Now, I recognise that most of our speakers have, to some extent or another, touched upon this in some way. In doing so, some general themes have emerged. We have to move the Overton window to make immigration and diversity a topic that we refuse to be coerced by. We must find the courage to say what is unsayable. We have to recognise that the Conservative Party, in its current iteration and for the foreseeable future, is not going to offer us any solutions, or certainly not solutions that it actually intends to act upon. And we need to create a separate ecosystem or counterculture through which our ideas can be promulgated and the debate around immigration normalised. These courses of action are, of course, theoretically feasible, but they don't really offer us a mechanism. So what can we actually do? That is what I want to look at here now. Firstly, I want to understand why successive governments have, over decades, been able to pursue destructive mass immigration policies, despite the fact that they are consistently unpopular with the majority of the population. Basically, why has it not been possible to convert popular and widespread sentiment into an immigration policy that is conducive to the interests and needs of the British people? After all, as early as the 1950s, when inflows of migrants were negligible compared to today, there were public expressions of concern about immigration and anxiety about its long-term implications. And yet here we still are, 70 years later, bemoaning the fact that the government continues with an immigration agenda we neither want nor need, any more than our 1950s counterparts wanted or needed it. Of course, the scale of the problem has grown by orders of magnitude since then. And the nature of the issue, as Amandeep touched upon earlier, has changed considerably. But over that time, popular resistance to immigration has never cohered or obtained political traction, whereas governments, big business, and their pro-immigration acolytes have been able to steamroll public opinion on this matter and have sustained ever-increasing immigration levels without significant backlash. This has been achieved in various ways. The first and most obvious explanation, as Matt alluded to earlier, is that our Westminster model of government can only be an effective and democratically representative electoral system when the two dominant parties within it actually offer different policy positions on key issues. Since the 1990s, both parties have converged on a middle ground that lends itself to managerial, technocratic, and astoundingly uninspiring and unimaginative government. Why on earth the modern Conservative Party seems to idolise Tony Blair, the great destroyer, is one of the profound mysteries of our time. But as we have seen, there can be no doubt that the Conservatives have embraced Blair's mass immigration agenda wholeheartedly, to such an extent that they have overseen the highest levels of immigration in our history. And while Blair recognised that there should at least be a modicum of effort directed towards dealing with illegal immigration, even if only to maintain a pretense of concern, the Conservatives appear to have given up policing our borders altogether. The unavoidable outcome of this is that while the people of the UK stick to historical voting patterns, mass immigration will continue. The second explanation is that successive governments of both hues have consistently shifted the basis upon which they justify immigration. In the early days, the official lie, for want of a better word, was that it was necessary to fill labour shortages, the classic lump of labour fallacy. In reality, it was, and still remains, a means by which British business was able to offset the requirement to modernise or improve productivity by ensuring a steady flow of cheap labour to keep costs down. The British managerial class was as myopic then as they are today, and it was an approach that clearly didn't work very well, as the collapse of British manufacturing and industry in the 1960s and 1970s testifies. While such spurious economic justifications have always remained integral to the arguments of the pro-immigration brigade, the last half-century has witnessed the emergence of a more ideological basis for immigration. Firstly, we were offered multiculturalism, as discussed by Rafe earlier, until its inherent contradictions and social divisiveness became so obvious that not even a Prime Minister as staunchly liberal as David Cameron could pretend any longer that it was working. Hence his famous speech to the Munich Security Conference in 2011, in which he says as much. Suella is not telling us anything that we haven't heard from the Conservatives 10 years ago. And now we are being resold multiculturalism, repackaged as diversity, a supposedly unalloyed good, sold on the basis that diversity is strength, something else that Rafe deconstructed brilliantly earlier. I can think of no phrase that more perfectly encapsulates the postmodern tendency of our political, media, and academic classes to assert such self-evidently and objectively false claims as uncontestable truths. The fact is that the pro-immigration lobby has been enormously successful at rehashing the supposed merits of immigration and selling them again. If you don't believe me, just ask the average baby boomer why immigration was initiated in the post-war decades. The plurality response will likely be that we had a shortage of workers and that immigrants were brought in to do the work that the British didn't want to do. 2 or 3 generations later, and many millennials have been successfully indoctrinated into believing the totally false and very sinister assertion that we are, and always have been, a nation of immigrants. The narrative, as Matt said earlier, has been hijacked. In a nutshell, immigration has been backed by the most long-term and determined propaganda campaign, possibly of all time. The third reason they've got away with it, and this links very closely with what I've just said, is that there is an enormous and powerful pro-immigration industry that occupies almost all levers of power in the country. This has emerged as a product of the march through the institutions, something that the NCF's Mark Sidwell has written about extensively. The fact is that there is an entrenched immigration industry, and though it might not necessarily recognize itself as such, each of its elements is highly transparent. Beyond the obvious political class, most of whom have embraced a very particular brand of centrist liberalism that is mass immigration, anti-historical, and contemptuous of the nation state. There is also big business, the civil service, academia, the higher education sector, the NHS, local authorities, most of the mainstream media, well-funded NGOs, even the unions, even the church, and of course an army of immigration lawyers, all clamouring from their different perches and for their own economic or ideological reasons for mass immigration to continue. In light of all of this, it is actually quite remarkable and offers some cautious hope that the country still largely opposes immigration, as we have heard. So, what can we actually do about it? 70 years of public anger and frustration have failed to manifest in any effective way, while the problem itself has rolled on with increasing relentlessness. What is different now? Are the primary drivers of mass immigration that we have just considered all of a sudden vulnerable to popular will after having been completely indifferent for so long? Well, not exactly, no. But something has changed. And it exposes a chink in the armour that must be exploited. I will try to explain. The political class have never been held in such low esteem as they are today. The results in the Trust in Government survey conducted by the Office for National Statistics last year found that Parliament, the mother of parliaments, was trusted by only 34% of people, and political parties by only 20%. Also, quite revealingly, only 30% of the UK population thought it was likely that a national policy, read immigration here if you want, would be changed if the majority of people expressed a view against it. Furthermore, the major political parties are becoming increasingly indistinguishable in terms of their policies. This significantly reduces the imperative for negative voting. I don't like either, so I will just vote for the one I hate or fear the least. This has been the primary voting calculus for almost every general election in the UK since at least 1992. I would suggest possibly that 1997 and 2019 are exceptions to this. With an election pending within the next 15 months and Labour looking favourite to obtain power, the political class are likely to descend ever further into inefficacy and disrepute in the coming years. This matters because this set of political circumstances provides an opportunity. An opportunity for the British public to put pressure both on incumbent parliamentarians and those looking to replace them to pledge an end to mass immigration once and for all. The public must ultimately realise they have absolutely nothing to lose by refusing to vote for a major party. An electoral rejection of the two-party system is possible. And with this is the possibility that people will be willing to lend their vote to a smaller party that opposes mass immigration. With this in mind, and in consultation with a number of academics, researchers, journalists, commentators, and others, I have decided to set up a campaign that draws attention to this. It is called End Mass Migration. It can be found online at endmassmigration.uk. We, the people of the UK, have to look to ourselves to put an end to mass immigration. And we need this campaign because help certainly isn't coming from anywhere else. We can't rely on our parliamentarians. We know they don't care. And we are aware of the power of the immigration industry that wants to thwart our will. As tragic as it is, there are no institutions left that believe in giving the British people primacy in our own land and the right to determine who we share that land with. It therefore becomes our duty to bring about the necessary change ourselves via, of course, legal means. To do this, we must organise. Philip earlier made the point that organisation and coordination does not come easily to the right. We believe in discussion and debate. We welcome differences of opinion. We recognise human fallibility. And we know that it is only the intellectual sterility of the left that leads to their anti-intellectual and dogmatic worldview. We rise above that. But the left haven't just used coercion, intimidation, and ad hominem attacks. They have also been much better than us at coordinating and organising and cohering their message. We need to establish a grassroots presence throughout the country by setting up local chapters and coordinating and messaging our activities centrally. NMassMigration.uk wants to become that focal point. It needs to become that focal point. There is not a focal point out there to do this. And we need this local presence to take action. We need people to distribute literature, to set up stalls on high streets, and to make it clear to their fellow constituents up and down the country 3 things. If you want change, don't vote for a major party. Number 2, a vote against mass immigration is a vote for increased productivity growth and a higher standard of living. It is a vote for alleviating pressure on the NHS, schools, the natural environment, and national infrastructure. It is a vote for less congestion on our roads. It is a vote for a healthier housing market to the benefit especially of our younger people. And it is a vote for society and belonging in the face of relentless, unaccountable globalizing forces. The End Mass Migration campaign makes 5 demands of MPs and the wider political class. Number 1, we demand massive reductions in immigration. You knew that was coming. Number 2, we demand a referendum to impose strict and legally binding limits on long-term immigration to the UK. Number 3, we demand UK withdrawal from the European Court of Human Rights, from the United Nations Refugee Convention, which is no longer fit for purpose in this day and age, and from the less well-known but nonetheless very, very worrying, I advise you to look it up, United Nations Migration Compact, which is essentially a backdoor way of facilitating massive movements of people from the global south into the UK and the Western world in general. Number 4, we demand an open and honest conversation in the public space about immigration. And number 5, we demand the exposure and dismantlement of the immigration industry. Most people just cannot believe how tentacular and entrenched that is. And we must act now. The sooner the better. We must spread the word about this campaign. We need to offer people hope in a social and political environment that is increasingly coercive and isolating. People need to feel empowered to do something and to believe that in doing so, they can affect change. nmassmigration.uk offers that opportunity. The road will, of course, be difficult. But we have grand plans for this campaign, and it will evolve over the coming weeks, months, and years. But this campaign won't be able to achieve anything without your support, and the support of everybody you know, and everybody they know. So please think about whether or not you, and those you know, can help to support us. Of course, we need money, but we also need other help. We need legal and technical help. We need people who have campaign and fundraising experience, people who can help to coordinate local activities. Any way you think you can help be service to this noble cause, then please go to the website, look at what we're trying to do, and get in touch. We are not attempting to replicate the work of others, most notably Migration Watch UK, who have been a tireless voice of sanity and decency for over 2 decades in this discussion, and who have produced a great body of useful work for reference. We are not a think tank, and we do not advocate nor a political party, and neither do we advocate a political party. But we are determined to ensure that immigration policy works for the people of this country and is mandated democratically. That can only happen if the people currently sitting in the House of Westminster recognise that they will not be able to retain power if they continue on the same trajectory. Don't forget, the email address is nmassmigration.uk. Our odious and incompetent political class may have given up on the British people, but we have not given up on ourselves. That's why we are here. We believe in this country. We believe in the country that our ancestors have sacrificed and toiled to build. We believe in the legacy that they have bequeathed to us, and we believe that it is worth protecting. If our political leaders don't believe in these same things, then it is nothing less than our duty and responsibility to ensure that they are removed from power and replaced by people who do. So, to wrap up, you have 2 options. You can go back to your partners and children tonight and tell them that you had an interesting and hopefully lovely day out in Westminster. That will be it until next year's conference. Or you can return with a spring in your step and a sense that, sorry Peter, I'm not necessarily suggesting that you're playing one, but I hope so. You can return with a spring in your step and a sense that something can be done to save our country and our children's future from those who seem intent on destroying it. The choice is yours. Please choose wisely. Yes, the website is up. It was only put up very recently. I was hoping to get something done on the PowerPoint today, but unfortunately that's not been possible. But it's pretty simple to remember. I've got lots of cards I can distribute with the website on. We don't know where this is going to go, but there's nothing out there doing this. There's nothing offering this course of action. We have to try. It's something. It's better than nothing.
I'll make a comment before asking a question, a very brief comment. So essentially, are we going to become like the just stop oil for mass immigration, basically. And the second thing is, what kind of efforts are you looking at? Are you, because I came here a bit disillusioned because I've been with UKIP and I've done the stalls on Saturday mornings and all that kind of thing, but yeah, the situation has got bad. I suppose what we're going to do is, I suggest we're going to try lots of different things and see what works, essentially.
Well, you say the situation's got bad with UKIP, but UKIP before 2016 were an incredibly effective organisation. Ultimately, the fact that the Conservative Party have completely torpedoed UKIP's achievement by bringing about the referendum and the vote is not really UKIP's fault. The modern UKIP is a different matter, of course, but the suggestion that going out with UKIP being disillusioning, in the days of UKIP's prime, and remember, UKIP was a political party, this is not a party structure. In the days of UKIP's prime, they were enormously effective. So I think, if we can emulate UKIP's achievements, I would be quite glad about that. If we can pull the conversation that way, if we can, even if it does take a decade or 20 years, to force this onto the agenda of the political parties. And if we can't break the two-party dominance, at least force them into a sense that they have to offer some sort of referendum on this. Well, we need action on the streets. We need grassroots local action. If you go, basically, we need people, we can distribute literature, we can go knocking on doors, talking to people, making people recognise the fact that the current situation, because people deep down, I think most people in the country, we've heard the stats, most people are very disillusioned with Westminster. And we are going to get Labour in power, and they're going to be even more disillusioned with Westminster, for obvious reasons. So we have a diabolical political class that are increasingly demonstrating that they are not serving our interests. Once people recognise that, and we have to, it's making people aware of that fact, that if you vote for the Conservatives or Labour, you are going to get the same. And what the same is not what you want. It's not good for you, it's not good for your family. We just have to build awareness. We have to make people confident to think, okay, I'm not voting for either of those parties anymore. This isn't going to change the world overnight. We are stuck with the two-party system for at least 5, probably 10 years more. But we have to start somewhere, and we have to start as soon as possible. So it's raising awareness.
Hello, if you're enjoying the New Culture Forum channel and you believe in our mission, may I invite you to join our membership scheme at the link below or on our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Our work is more important now than ever, and we have great plans ahead for the future, but we can't do it without your support. From as little as £3 per month, you can help ensure that we continue on our mission. As a member, you'll receive a range of benefits, including access to exclusive content, invitations to our private events, including here at our studios, free copies of our books, and much, much more, including, of course, our famous NCF mug. If you aren't able to become a member, then please help us by clicking this button and subscribing to our channel. It's completely free. Just remember to also click the bell icon so that you can get notifications when we post new videos. Thank you.